to today's Insight keynote session, how emerging technologies and computer vision solutions power digital transformation. My name is Eric Uneg. I'm the Vice President of Technology and Innovation here at Convergint. And it's my pleasure to introduce today's keynote speaker, Michele Pelino. Michele is a principal analyst on Forrester's infrastructure and operations research team with over 15 years of experience in the enterprise mobility and telecom industry. Michele's research focuses on the Internet of Things, platforms, technologies, and applications, as well as edge computing solutions. Michele's research spans applications in key markets, including retail, healthcare, manufacturing, smart buildings, smart city environments. She focuses on the role of emerging technology, including 5G networks, empowering new transformative applications, services, and business models. Prior to joining Forrester, Michele was a management consultant serving national and international communications and technology clients in North America and Europe. Today's session is 1 hour. We'd encourage the audience to pose questions throughout as you feel led, and we'll try to get to those questions in the final 10 or 15 minutes as we wrap up the session. On a personal note, I've had the pleasure of getting to know Michele a little bit in preparing for this session, and I'm really excited to hear what she has to share with us today. She's got a really unique perspective, and one that I think is really valuable, as we all in our context navigate the opportunities and challenges of digital transformation. I think, these themes are incredibly important in the fire security, life safety context, particularly as we try to understand these key themes that should be anchoring our long-term strategies, how we help our organizations, tap into these themes and really capitalize on the momentum in these areas, and helping us plan for the technology architectures of the future that are ushering in a lot of these new use cases and capabilities. And then finally, really, helping us all recognize where we can add new value to our organizations and align with the broader digital transformation strategies that are driving businesses across industries today. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Michele, and you can tell us a little more about yourself and kick off today's session.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. It's absolutely my pleasure to join you, Eric, and the team today, and all of you who are on the conference. As Eric said, I have been with Forrester for many years, about 15 years as a principal analyst here. And in focusing my research over the course of those years, I've been lucky enough to really look at some of these technologies and the evolution of adoption of various types of technologies, including IoT and edge and 5G, and looking at how those types of initiatives are really transforming the way we do business and the way organizations are engaging with customers and partners and processes and transforming and differentiating those experiences. So today's session is going to focus on a few different areas. I'm going to talk a little bit about how digital transformation and computer vision are key priorities for many organizations. I'll talk more about some of the key technologies that are driving momentum for digital transformation. That includes edge and IoT solutions. That also will include some emerging technologies that really are extending these transformational opportunities into a variety of different verticals and use case opportunities. I'll provide some examples throughout, but also in the section that's really highlighting some areas where computer vision is enhancing applications in a variety of markets, extending in some of these vertical areas that Eric was referring in terms of new opportunities. And finally, I'll wrap up with some recommendations for success. So with that, let me just start by talking a little bit about what digital transformation means and how computer vision is coming into play within the context of digital transformation in organizations. So there isn't really a standard definition of what is meant by digital transformation. One of the things that we at Forrester do is try to lend context to some of these key areas. And so when we think about digital transformation, we talk about it as impacting businesses in a variety of different ways. These digital transformation initiatives are changing the way businesses are engaging with customers, and they're providing ways of enabling customer experiences that are personalized, that are easy to engage with, that are effective, and that are really providing customers with the information they need and the value that they desire when and where they need it. There are also digital operational capabilities, and those types of initiatives are really focused on transforming operations, different types of operational processes that are critical across many different industry environments. Those include looking at opportunities to transform issues in supply chain or in different kinds of industries in manufacturing or in healthcare or in retail, and looking at processes that are absolutely critical for those industries. Supply chain comes to mind as being quite important, or security and safety and surveillance. Digital ecosystems are really looking at the fact that there are many different participants that are part of these solutions. And there are definitely many partner ecosystems and platform solutions that are allowing organizations to change the way that they engage with the customers, with their partners, with their suppliers, as well as how they design, develop, and implement solutions in particular use cases and in particular vertical markets. And finally, there are digital innovation opportunities. Now, those opportunities include technology tech transformations that are happening as a result of new technologies. Computer vision is certainly one of those. I'll also talk about some of the other types of technologies that are really allowing organizations to innovate at these different sectors for customers, for operational processes, as well as with their partners and suppliers. So with that, let me provide some insight. In that Forrester fields many surveys to global stakeholders each year to better understand what the types of initiatives and priorities those stakeholders have around using different types of technologies, how users are engaged with certain types of products and technologies and applications, as well as the priorities that these organizations have. And in this particular question, we asked about which businesses were prioritizing certain types of processes as part of their digital transformation efforts. And it's probably not a surprise that IT processes are towards the top of this list. But what I think is really important is to say that this concept of digital transformation is happening across many different organizational processes and initiatives in marketing, in service and support, across the end-to-end supply chain, including supply chain management and inventory management, looking at ways to transform operational processes in manufacturing or in how folks are designing and developing their products. What's important to recognize here is that you need to think about the stakeholders who are part of these discussions that you're having as they look to transform their processes and products, and know that it's not just the technology experts that are part of these discussions. It's actually also many operational stakeholders, and you need to understand their requirements, their needs, and how these solutions, computer vision, and the technologies that are driving transformational opportunities really address their needs and requirements. The other thing that's really important to understand is that when we talk about digital transformation, we're not referring to one technology. There are many different technologies that are part of these types of initiatives. And organizations that are pursuing digital transformation efforts are including the technologies that you see on the right as part of those priority initiatives in digital transformation. So you see that Internet of Things solutions are very important as part of digital transformation environments. We see elements of analytics around AI and machine learning coming into play here to bring the information and insight to light in various ways. We have different kinds of network infrastructures that are powering these opportunities around 5G networks and edge computing capabilities. And we also have new types of applications and services that are part of the plan in many organizations to help transform experiences in new ways with applications in an AR or VR environment. So when we talk about technologies, there are many technologies that are included in digital transformation. We also find that there are emerging technologies that are coming into play. And this is where we see computer vision solutions as part of the ecosystem of vendors and service providers offering capabilities that are necessary to deploy these solutions. Now, on this slide, we have sort of mapped some of these capabilities, these different technologies against implementation and newness. And what we're finding is that there's capabilities that are out there, such as computer vision, that's bringing together facial recognition capabilities, bringing together insight about optical character recognition and document analysis, and bringing together analytics capabilities and artificial intelligence capabilities. Other types of solutions that are bringing together analytics and bringing insight into these transformative processes include the AI and deep learning capabilities and natural language processing that's becoming more common as well. You also see different types of value added by different solutions here on this chart. So if you think about augmented and virtual reality and digital twin capabilities, the value proposition of those solutions in a digital transformation initiative is to change and translate physical information into digital information. So the value of each of these different technologies really varies. But as you look at them collectively, there are lots of different emerging technologies that are powering these experiences in new ways. One thing I would just mention is distributed ledger technology. That's also called blockchain technology. So there's definitely opportunities in other areas that may be less relevant to our conversation today, but certainly are extending into new ranges and new places in terms of translating into value for organizations. So where does the concept of computer vision really come into play? And bringing value is very important. And one of the things that the computer vision solutions really bring to light is bringing to light intelligence at scale. And the way that they do that is in 4 different areas. We've categorized into document intelligence, bringing to light deep learning about documents and structure and in guides, using OCR to extract meaning from those documents and bring that information into the computer vision solution. There's product intelligent capabilities that enable enterprises to monitor their products through the product lifecycle that can include throughout different operational processes, the supply chain process, using cameras and networks and compute capabilities to understand what's happening with that product, as well as where that product is, and understanding what types of capabilities and features and functions are being used, and bringing that information to light using the computer vision solutions. Computer vision solutions are also bringing to light equipment intelligence. And this is really important when we start thinking about new vertical markets where connected assets, products, equipment, and machinery in the manufacturing arena, in the healthcare arena, in different kinds of sectors like oil and gas, and in environments where you're connecting very complicated equipment, monitoring that equipment using sensors, using computer vision capabilities to optimize and accelerate identification of problems and helping to solve issues that happen with that equipment. And then there's the people intelligence piece. And this is where the more traditional safety, security, monitoring kinds of solutions come into play. You know, where are folks spending time? What are they doing? You know, is there something about what's happening that you need to understand in more detail, using video and visual analytics, using thermodynamic capabilities, understanding, you know, the location of folks, and bringing that information to light as well. So all of these capabilities are really bringing new intelligence into a variety of different business processes, capabilities, and products. So I've talked a little bit about computer vision and the role that it's playing within digital transformation. Now I wanted to talk more specifically about some of these key technologies that are powering these experiences. So one of the areas that's really important to understand when we talk about connecting many different assets, products, and processes and bringing to light intelligence in various ways is Internet of Things solutions. With Internet of Things solutions, there's, again, not a standard definition of what we mean by IoT. But at a very basic level, Internet of Things solutions provide software control of the physical world. And by using the insight and analysis that's captured, there are changes that are made to products and to processes and to customer relationships, because you now can understand what's happening with that connected asset in much more real-time way. You can understand location and status and presence of that asset, and you can make decisions differently because of that insight. Now, on the right hand of this slide, one of the things that I'm often asked is, well, what is an Internet of Things solution? And there are many different technologies that have to come together to create an IoT solution. Here's a visual representation of some of those elements. At the basic level, there are the sensors, the RFID tags, the GPS capabilities, the accelerometers, the cameras that are capturing information about location and status and presence of the connected assets. And those connected assets are then interfacing with different types of wireless and wireline networks and bringing to light information about that connected asset. There are analytics capabilities that are also very important here. Now, those analytics capabilities include AI and machine learning capabilities that bring the data that's being captured from those connected environments to light in valuable ways, and bring that to light for different operational stakeholders, for different kinds of process owners, for different types of customer experiences. And that insight is then I use to I define different alternative actions that can be taken. And those actions could be to turn something on or off. Those actions could be, guess what? We need somebody to come over and look at a patient in a healthcare scenario. Those actions could include, guess what? We're running out of inventory. Let's automatically reorder those items that are out of stock. But those alternative actions can be taken in a true machine to machine way with no person involved in that. Or alerts can be sent to a person, so that they can say, guess what, it's time to pay attention to this, especially if you're talking about medical issues or issues where you must have a person involved, but you need them to be aware that there's something not quite right. So for connected healthcare situations, there's often alerts that are saying, pay attention to this now, decide what you should do, but something doesn't look quite right. And wrapped around all of these elements are security issues, auditing, and governance issues. And you have to think about how you're securing these environments. You have to think about how you're going to be allowing people to share information that's captured from these connected environments. You have to think about who gets access to the data and the information that's being captured. Do they have the authority to do so? Or are the regulations that require you to limit who gets to see the information, or given GDPR capabilities and requirements in some countries and regions, the governance are different. So you have to be careful about security and governance. You also have to think about where these solutions are delivered. Are they going to be delivered at the edge? Are they going to be delivered in the cloud, or some combination of the above? So that gives you an idea of what we mean about Internet of Things solutions. Now, where you can think about overlaying computer vision capabilities really starts to come into play as you look at some of the use cases in specific vertical markets where IoT is being deployed. And on this slide, you see our survey data in terms of what plans do organizations have to adopt IoT solutions or applications. And these are global stakeholders across the world, and we asked them what their plans timelines were, implementation, or are they planning to do so in the next 12 months? And some of these vertical markets, such as chemicals, oil and gas, high-tech products, industrial products, are further along in their adoption of IoT solutions. But you see significant opportunities in pretty much every industry already. Now, what's interesting about this data is it only says, are we implementing or expanding implementation or planning to deploy? It doesn't tell you the scale or scope of those implementation efforts. So if I'm on a factory floor, I may have implemented IoT solutions on one plant line or in one building, as opposed to the 10 buildings that I'm planning to deploy these solutions on. So you have to think about that in terms of the scale and the scope. But in general, you see opportunities to deploy IoT solutions across many segments and vertical markets. The other thing you need to think about when you're talking about Internet of Things solutions is what are the use cases that are being used to deploy in these different vertical markets. So our surveys, we asked about what types of use cases and applications are you deploying using IoT initiatives. And here you see what we would call horizontal use cases. These are use cases that we consider to be common across many vertical markets. And this is a report that we call an IoT heat map, where we take into account the survey data about adoption and plans to adopt these vertical use cases across vertical markets. We also took into account, as we created this color-coded representation, IT spending in these vertical markets, as well as asset intensity of those vertical markets. Because if you're connecting environments, more assets indicates more value. So when we think about these three use cases, smart buildings and facility management, energy management, security and surveillance, you see a lot of reds and oranges in this, visual here. So what that means is that these are applicable, these use cases are applicable across many different segments and different vertical markets. And when we think about security and surveillance, obviously, ensuring the security of employees and the public safety monitoring capabilities and surveillance capabilities are applicable in many areas. And there are also many opportunities to overlay computer vision use cases and solutions on top of the verticals that you see here, because the value of insight provided by computer vision solutions can be seen across the security and surveillance arena, certainly, but also in building and facility management environments, and even to help with different types of energy monitoring and monitoring different systems and connecting those systems within a building into the computer vision capabilities along with the IoT solutions. And you can create an automated environment to manage, monitor, and use resources like energy, power, lighting more efficiently, or tying in security and surveillance to make sure everybody knows the best route to leave the building in case something were to happen and there were an emergency. So these types of initiatives can all be deployed using IoT and potentially leveraging computer vision solutions on top. Other use cases are tied to functional use cases, and we call these functional IoT use cases because they tend to apply to certain industries, but not all. So there are certain functions like supply chain and inventory management and warehousing management that apply to different manufacturing environments, high-tech products, industrial production, retail sectors, CPG and pharma as well. But they don't apply to every industry. So some of these use cases are particularly relevant when you're talking to different vertical stakeholders, and asset management and monitoring and predictive maintenance is becoming more common, especially in some of these manufacturing environments when they're trying to use remote monitoring and maintenance applications to understand what's happening with high value pieces of machinery and equipment, as well as, because we've been living through the pandemic, you haven't had as many people literally on the plant floors or in these different environments in the different industries you see here. So predictive maintenance and remote monitoring applications are quite important. Again, you can see that computer vision solutions can help with that. Understanding visually what's happening with a piece of machinery and equipment can be very important as well. Aspects of environmental monitoring can be also incorporated into this and understanding what's happening within these different environments and if everything is going as it should. So one of the things that's also happening when folks talk about their IoT solutions is they ask about edge. So I'll talk a little bit about this idea of what edge means in the context of some of these IoT environments. And the idea of an edge environment is to provide compute information and insight at the location where it's going to be most valuable. And that is tied to some of these applications where you have to do some type of analysis, or you need to understand what's happening with that connected asset, where that asset is actually located. And when you think about the types of different use cases that I just went through with Internet of Things, there's different types of edge environments in these scenarios. You have sensing edge environments. And in the sensing edge, you're basically just understanding if something is on or off. It's kind of like the zeros and the ones, the binary action. Is it on? Is it off? And recognizing the status of a particular asset. In an actuating edge, when we're talking about insight and bringing to light actions, this is where you're starting to get more information and you're taking on information about that item asset that's connected. And you can use different types of sensors to really turn something on or turn something off, or to change the temperature in a building or a room, or to take an action that is necessary. So this is called the actuating edge, and it delivers actions, but obviously not really transformative, but useful. In the stateful edge environments, you're talking about using these technologies that we're talking about, but because you have to think about the location of where these environments are, some of these locations are not in places where there's seamless connectivity. And so one thing that is necessary in some of these scenarios is, how do you deal with the fact that we're capturing information about a connected asset or product or environment, but we may not have connectivity to provide that information at the time that it's being captured. So in the stateful edge, you need to have some storage capabilities at the edge. You may have some analytics capabilities to do some basic analytics literally at the location of that environment. And finally, there's more of an autonomous edge. And at the autonomous edge, this is where we're integrating all kinds of AI and machine learning and intelligence into those environments. This is where a lot of the computer vision solutions would come into play, because they're bringing to light information in new ways, right? You're capturing what's happening in an environment. You're using AI and machine learning capabilities, and then you're making decisions and recommending actions based on the information that's been collected from those environments. So there's lots of different types of edge environments. And with the Internet of Things that I started speaking about, the challenge is that the edge computing environment of the past has been focused really on a data center, right? We've been looking at data centers, processing information in data centers, a four-wall environment using WAN technology in a building, enabling different applications in that building for employees, but not looking outside of that building necessarily. Now, what we're finding is that there are multiple edge environments that are evolving as we start thinking about these IoT use cases and the many different ways that you can extend the connecting, the analytics, the different kinds of analysis capabilities and storage into new environments, into remote locations. And that's where we get into more the operational edge capabilities. Many of the IoT solutions that I referred to earlier on really fit into this operational edge. There are use cases in particular industries, in healthcare or manufacturing. There are operational processes that are enabled through the production floor or on the plant line, or through different types of applications that really engage customers in new ways in different retail environments and settings. There are new operational processes that are happening in smart city environments to transform how citizens engage in those environments as well. And then there are new applications in a more consumer focused, what we call the engagement edge, where we're talking about smart homes, security, smart security solutions, different kinds of applications at the edge that could enable different infotainment and media experiences, high speed access to gaming and AR and VR applications as well. And at the bottom, you see the provider edge. These are the technology providers like the telcos that are really providing the underlying infrastructure for many of these IoT and edge environments in various different ways, in a cloud environment, as well as through different kinds of hosted environments and networking infrastructure scenarios. So I've been talking a lot about digital transformation. Lots of different elements are coming together. Lots of different technologies are part of enabling digital transformation. And many different use cases are part of this scenarios that can be enabled in these environments. But one of the things that's important to recognize is that there are some challenges that many organizations face as they deploy these solutions. And one of the things that comes to mind is they're worried about security. They're worried about the security of the data, the devices, the environments that they're deploying these solutions in. So security is an important aspect of something to address as part of these digital transformation initiatives. But they also have issues in many cases around data and insight and analytics. So a lot of times the skill sets in organizations to bring to light the analytics and the insight in actionable ways in real time using AI and machine learning capabilities, the skill sets to do that are not necessarily ones that every organization has. So they often need help on the data side, on the analytics side. And then there are also issues around technology skill sets. Do we have the right technology skill sets in-house? Maybe we need some additional help from third-party partners. What about, legal and regulatory issues that are addressed in my region, my country, or in my vertical market? So all of these things are part of the discussion process as organizations think about their digital transformation strategy, as well as the kinds of use cases and applications that they're deploying in those environments. So why don't I talk a little bit about some additional emerging technologies that are further extending these transformational opportunities. So when we think about some of these additional technology transformational opportunities, one type of technology called digital twins is quite important as we start thinking about connecting and managing, securing, and enabling these connected environments. And a digital twin is a virtual representation of a physical asset. Now, it includes many different elements. It includes information about the status and the relationships of that asset or device to other environments and assets around it. It includes the status and the state and information about that individual asset. And then it represents that asset in a virtual way. Now, why is that so important? So when you start thinking about connecting many, many objects, items, assets, many millions of these devices across many different environments and use cases and applications, the challenge then becomes, how do you ensure that you are able to manage and monitor and do scenario planning for what happens if something goes wrong in that environment? And that's what digital twins really allow. They are able to represent a physical asset in a virtual world. They're able to send data between the physical and the virtual, and you can test different what if scenarios of these different environments, whether it's about a connected product or even a connected process like for supply chain, where you have to think about inventory management, fleet management, locations of suppliers. The scenarios planning for supply chain has become much more complicated, especially as a result of what we've been living through in the pandemic over the past year. And so these scenario plans using digital twins can help you understand, well, what happens if? So what happens if the temperature goes up by 5 degrees? Is my production line going to go down? Is the medical equipment that's being used to run tests and CAT scans and MRIs, is that going to go down in the middle of testing in the middle of the day? All of those types of things can be done using digital twins as opposed to waiting for an actual event to happen. And you can overlay computer vision solutions on top of the information that's being incorporated into these digital twins, because the computer vision solutions are capturing the three-dimensional information about what's happening in that environment. So you're feeding in data and insight into these models and analytics to help with the scenario analysis that can be done using digital twin solutions. So lots of opportunity there to bring to light additional insight as part of digital twin capabilities. The other thing that we're finding is that 5G technologies are being deployed. And those of you who watch TV probably see announcements around 5G on a lot of different commercials and that sort of thing. What we're finding is that there is a bit of confusion in terms of availability of 5G networks. So the reason that everybody's very excited about 5G is because of the incredibly high bandwidth and the incredibly low latency of these solutions. However, one thing that's really important to recognize is 5G networks are not seamlessly available. Each telecom provider, each equipment manufacturer, each device manufacturer has their own timelines for just deploying these initiatives over the necessary bandwidth and frequencies that they have access to. Now, the benefits are certainly there because the incredibly high bandwidth and low latency and the ability to connect to millions of devices in small areas offers new applications and new use cases. But you have to remember that each telco is having to climb up poles and deploy new infrastructure. And you actually have to have a new smartphone or tablet or device that's 5G enabled. Your 4G phone is not going to work. But what we're finding is as these 5G networks are deployed, they're opening up new doors and new opportunity areas. And where we're going to see the initial momentum and are already seeing it is within private 5G environments, where organizations are able to create their own 5G network in their own buildings, in their own office environments, in their own campus environments, in healthcare facilities, in retail facilities. And that's where the momentum is today. So lots of opportunities when you think about those types of environments to deploy 5G use cases and applications, especially because there's a necessity around 5G, around high bandwidth and low latency that powers video as a component of applications in a way that we haven't seen in the past. And that's going to open up new doors to applications that you see on this slide, things like manufacturing automation processes, or new types of entertainment experiences, or new types of applications in augmented and virtual reality that can be used in business or in environments for medical training purposes, as well as for entertainment for folks in going to different events and sporting events as well. So the idea when you think about 5G is that the real power of it with the bandwidth and the latency is how can you overlay video into many of these applications? And I would say that is going to extend new opportunities to computer vision solutions to allow for this additional insight to be captured in new ways and added to the applications that you see on this page and to provide new insight and value in these environments. So I think 5G is going to really power additional computer vision capabilities as well as opportunities. We'll also see new opportunities around automation. And computer vision is a big piece of the puzzle in gathering information and insight in these new environments. When you're talking about connecting assets, robotics, drones, equipment, machinery in a particular environment, then it becomes very important to understand what's happening in real time in the world that is happening, as it happens. And computer vision solutions are important to capturing that information using analytics and insight to understand where things should be, keeping everybody safe and understanding who's in those environments, what types of processes are happening, what types of machinery and equipment are moving around, and enabling a safe and healthy environment, whether it be in manufacturing or whether it be in different settings within smart city environments or smart building environments, and taking action in that way and knowing that once that information is captured and the analytics are done, that there are then actuators and robots and IoT solutions to really take action in those solutions and the scenarios. Again, though, when we think about some of these emerging technologies, it is important to recognize that it can be challenging and the security issues do come up here. Securing the devices, the apps, and the solutions, ensuring the security of these environments, very, very important. And really, it's important also to think about, security overall at the device level. at the networking level, at the different types of processes that you're engaging in, as well as in the different environments that you're deploying these connected solutions in, whether they be in edge environments, whether it be in 5G networks, or whether they're in new types of manufacturing or industrial or vertical use cases. So I've been talking a lot about technology opportunities that are going to drive momentum for computer vision solutions. I wanted to provide a few examples in where we're seeing the initial momentum here and where we think that these areas are going to really provide near-term scenarios, in bringing together the transformational technologies I've been talking about with computer vision as a powering force. And one of these areas is across augmented and virtual realities. And so when we think about AR and VR solutions, one of the most important things that you need for a seamless AR VR experience is to bring together 3D information about that real world scenario and environment and feed that into the AR and VR applications that you see on this slide. So things like providing field service technicians with information and insight in real time about what's happening with a particular product, a challenge that may be happening, an issue that they're trying to fix, providing recommendations on how to actually fix that particular asset or product, no matter where that technician might be, and then giving them insight based on lessons learned from documentation that's been captured in a computer vision scenario, from different training materials and videos that might have happened, as well as from understanding information from other technicians who may have had that same issue in the past. So computer vision powering that type of experience. Another one that's really relevant in the near term is around training and learning and development. And when you think about training scenarios, this is really important when you're thinking about scenarios for training, folks in the medical field, when you're talking about training field technicians on how to fix pieces of machinery that are the size of football fields and the complexity to that. And what's important is to recognize that we're seeing that many baby boomers are actually retiring in the near term in the next few years. And so some of the capabilities that augmented and virtual reality can do is capture the information, the knowledge of those individuals and use AR and VR to translate that into new ways to train some of the other folks that may not be as experienced in those areas. So really important to think about new ways. And ultimately, you've got computer vision solutions that capture that information and show what's happening in real time and provide that context that's necessary for these scenarios for augmented and virtual reality. So what do some of our survey data provide? Our survey is showing that computer vision is something that organizations are adopting or planning to adopt in the near future. And certainly that's a good sign. It's across multiple vertical markets, as you see on this slide, and in many different types of scenarios. So when we think about it, using both augmented reality, virtual reality, computer vision, some of the technologies I've been talking about, let's think about it in new environments. So obviously security surveillance can, like I said very early on, can apply to many different vertical markets. But even in addition to security and surveillance as a use case, when you talk about use cases in specific industries, like in factory environments or in manufacturing, we're seeing computer vision solutions come to light for remote quality assurance or machine diagnostics and image analysis that's necessary to ensure these machines and equipment and the quality of products that are being created are being done in a certain level and manner. We also have issues that are tied to automated vehicle routing and making sure that the vehicles that are moving through these plant environments are doing so in a safe and secure way. There are also proactive inventory warehouse management types of use cases, knowing where certain pellets are, seeing how things are being loaded, monitoring and making sure everything is going well in the yard or in the warehouse, and that employees are doing things in a healthy and safe way to ensure that everybody is on the same page, with health and safety and environment. So lots of different use cases when you talk about this in the manufacturing sector. In the retail environment, we're seeing these scenarios come into play for reduction in lost or stolen and misplaced items. And I think that's probably a pretty common type of scenario. But we're seeing these use cases extend into different kinds of shelf availability solutions to monitor the planogram locations on the shelves and understand location of products, as well as to understand customer response to products or to different campaigns that might be in place as they shop in the stores. There's other ways of thinking about automatically counting boxes and crates and pellets to ensure inventory is at the level it should be. And so lots of solutions, that's more a little bit behind the scenes, but then you can tie that into applications that employees have that they can then automatically order if they know that there's a stock out happening. So lots of scenarios to bring together these technologies and add value in retail. In smart buildings, we're also seeing a real evolution of smart building scenarios. Part of that is because of the pandemic. And as we move into the new normal, organizations are trying to find new ways to get people to feel comfortable entering buildings and feeling safe and healthy as they go to work or they go into different building environments, whether it be a retail store or an office. And so ensuring the health and the safety of workers and using computer vision solutions here to enable and ensure that people where are they spending time, ensuring that they're dealing with social distancing appropriately, so to look at the heat maps of where people are congregating and trying to encourage people to maybe congregate in other locations and disperse a little bit. All of those are use cases that are becoming more and more important as we start getting back into the new normal following the past year of the pandemic. We see use cases around efficiency and using solutions to help monitor water and power and energy systems, or even critical systems in buildings, and tying computer vision capabilities into that. And looking at security and surveillance as a critical system in many buildings, as well as bringing that information to light within the context of some of the other systems in the building, such as lighting, and connecting those types of systems together, knowing that if somebody is not in a certain location, maybe you don't need to have the lights on, but if people are in a certain location, automatically turning the lights on is a good thing. So tying computer vision insight into efficiency solutions is also very important. And then in the transportation arena, we're seeing different scenarios coming to mind. And certainly autonomous driving, whether it's happening in a public setting or in more private settings, such as in a yard, a shipping yard, or in a facility, in a manufacturing site or a plant floor, vehicles that are moving from point A to point B can use these solutions very effectively to help do that in a safe way. We see video analytics to understand where vehicles are, but also to do intelligent routing to say, okay, here's the best way to get from point A to point B. In shipping yards, when you have a lot of trucks waiting in line, and you may have different routes that they can take in order to get unloaded and loaded quicker and faster, you can use that information to really guide the shipping process and the transport process as well. Or you may decide that you can send that truck to a different location and it could be unloaded quicker or faster. Again, lots of different ways to use computer vision, but also overlay that on top of these applications that are IoT enabled and will be powered by some of these transformative technologies that I talked about. So let me wrap up with some keys to success as you think about one, opportunities to work with customers that are engaging and using computer vision as part of their digital transformation strategies, as well as thinking about different types of applications that could be applicable in certain use cases for certain customers or certain application scenarios. So first and foremost, what's really important is to identify attractive use cases. Now, attractive use cases can be defined in a few different ways, and every organization may have a different way of thinking about this. But some of the key things to think about are you trying to improve accuracy? Are you trying to be more efficient? Are you trying to cut down on loss of certain expensive pieces of machinery, equipment, or assets? How important are these different types of processes and equipment that are being monitored to your organization? And how can you prioritize and use computer vision to enable and enhance those processes in new ways and add value to customers? You also think about quick success factors, right? You want to show success quickly as much as possible to get benefits from the solution, but also to gain momentum here. And so, in order to do that, you should try to leverage any existing video data or other types of data that you may already have in house. So you can start from, not just at a baseline of zero, but with some information already available to use in the computer vision solutions. Or think about if there's data that you need or video insight that you can capture in a reasonably inexpensive way. You should think about also the roadmap for some of these existing technologies and emerging technologies that I've been talking about, because those technologies are going to further extend opportunities for computer vision use cases across many vertical markets and many different environments. So 5G networks, are they available in the cities or locations or buildings or environments that you're in? Are there new applications and use cases that you can extend beyond security and health and safety into new applications that are vertically focused? So think about that. And also think about the skill sets in the organization. Do customers have the right skill sets to deal with the insight, the analytics, the new capabilities, the computational power and technology requirements that are necessary for computer vision solutions to work seamlessly? If they don't have those capabilities, and many customers don't, then you have to think about how to fill in those gaps. And I always talk about this to companies that talk to me about how to deal with issues they're facing and whether they should do things in-house or turn to partners. And in most cases, partners are the way to go. And certainly in this case, seeking partner assistance is definitely the way to go. Looking for partners that can help with demonstrated computer vision expertise, looking for partners that have expertise in these use cases and vertical markets where you're going to be deploying these solutions, very important, as well as in the different kinds of technologies that we've been talking about that are coming to light and powering and extending these computer vision solutions into new environments and into new vertical markets. So with that, I know I talked about a lot of different things here. I hope that we have some questions, Eric, and I can certainly try to answer them, and we can go from there.
Oh, Michelle, thank you. That was extremely informative. I know I took a lot of notes there and learned a lot of new things. I think your last slide in particular, I think for our audience is key, right? You helped us really zoom out and see the big picture here, and that's what I appreciated about all the information you brought forward here. Is in our context of security, fire, life safety, we've had a specific set of use cases that we've really been stewarding over the last number of years for our organizations, and this shift in technology, all of these trends that you've been describing here are really, they're across verticals, they're across geography, and these emerging use cases are really all around us now.
Yes.
And I think the challenge for our industry really is then to connect to those initiatives, right, that are in place. And one of the things that comes to me is, or comes to mind for me is really, where do you see who is leading these initiatives, right, inside of these organizations? Is it in Forrester's research or your experience? How do you see really who's driving these new thought processes and the innovation inside of the different types of organizations?
It's really a good question. So there's not an easy answer for that. what I will go back to is to say that many of these initiatives are being driven by the stakeholders that are responsible for the critical processes in those organizations. So if it's the security and surveillance team that's dealing with, you know what, guess what? A lot of things are walking out the door and we aren't expecting that. So we need to do something different. You know, if we're talking about in a particular vertical market, you may have issues around your ability to monitor, or you may have issues around the quality of the products that you're creating for the quality assurance use cases. So these stakeholders are the what I would call the business stakeholders or the operational stakeholders. They have the requirements. They're the ones that are responsible for delivering on what I would call KPIs to deliver a certain level of quality for a product, or to ensure that we don't have lost and stolen items walking out the door, or to ensure that people are healthy and safe when they're in buildings. Those are the what I call operational and business stakeholders. The other stakeholders that often are part of the conversation are the technologies folks. You know, okay, so if we're going to deploy this solution, what does it need to interface with? Are we going to be gathering information and insight from back-end systems, from our CRM systems, our inventory management systems, or if we have to scale this to many buildings or many environments? So that's more of a technology issue. It's both of those stakeholders that are part of the decision. In a quick kind of way, I'd also answer that to say, if a company has an innovation team, then that's a proxy for digital transformation. Often those innovation teams are thinking about things and outside of the box ways of doing things. So that's another hint to say, you know, who are some stakeholders might be responsible for making these decisions or thinking about evaluating new ways of doing things. The innovation teams, if there is such a thing in organizations, that would be another proxy role to think about.
Yeah, that's great, Michelle. That's really helpful. As you're talking there, I'm reflecting on one of your slides where you're talking about the four edge environments. And you know, when I think about innovation, when I hear you describe, you know, all these elements of digital transformation, I can't help but to connect the dots with, you know, what a lot of people in our industry have managed for a long time, which is that, you know, that operational edge, or that, you know, really that connecting the physical to the digital world, right? And I think it's a really interesting challenge for a lot of our organizations and a lot of our traditional stakeholders to say, look, we have, you know, expertise, capabilities, technology that we can invest in that, you know, both extends that security operational capability, but also then lends a new use cases to other areas of the organization, you know, that innovation may be focused on, and thinking
Yeah.
about how to bring a lot of that technology, add value to that technology architecture in an organization, and to drive that collaboration between, you know, new areas that, you know, previously might not have been a focus for a lot
Yeah.
of our, you know, customers.
And I think that that's coming up more and more so. How can you get into those adjacent areas? So moving from security to health and safety, which is a little bit different, right? Those use cases I was talking about that are driven from some of the COVID experiences, as much as we all want to be done with it, there needs to be some changes for folks to feel more comfortable in these buildings. And so whether you're in a manufacturing sector, an office building, I mean, you know, how can you use computer vision to really help people feel more secure, safe, and able to feel comfortable in these environments? There are lots of opportunities to do that. That's not really why we would want to have had the past year, but there's certainly lots of questions that are coming up right now about, you know, what kinds of opportunities can I build on? If I already have some of these technologies in the environment, can I extend it into new use cases, new applications? So if you're already in it from the security perspective, is there a way then to build on that? The infrastructure is there. So can they build on new applications that use that same infrastructure and create new opportunities? I think that's a starting point in terms of, from a sales side, that I would look at is those adjacent places that can build into what's already maybe in place with existing customers, and building into some of those new environments.
Yeah, that's a great point, and a good point to end on, Michelle. Listen, thank you very much for your time, all of your sharing your expertise, and really just bringing a lot of these opportunities to light for us. Been very insightful. I know I enjoyed the conversation, and I'm sure our audience did as well. So thank you.
Thanks so much. It's great to talk to you. Thanks, Eric.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for joining us.